Hello, this is Malcolm welcoming you to the 1934th edition of the Enfield Talking newspaper, Dateline 12th of December 2013. The readers this week are Elizabeth, Katherine, Audrey and myself with Dave on the controls. And as you know, the items that we'll be reading come from our local newspapers, the Enfield Gazette and Advertiser and the Enfield Independent, and they're their copyright. And our title music is Country Rock Polka, composed by Pat Prilly, Ferdinand Bouillon, Harry Breur, and performed by Jean-Jacques Perry, and is used with his kind permission. Our local stories this week include The Blue Light Goes Out at the Hospital, A Man Said He Couldn't Control Himself as He Killed His Wife, and Chicken Shed celebrates 40 glorious years. First of all, we thought you might like to know that there's, as well as the Christmas carols at your normal churches, there are Christmas services this year at Jubilee Church. And Jubilee Church hangs out at Cineworld Enfield, which is the junction with Southbury Road and the Great Cambridge Road. And they have a nativity service at 10:30 a.m. on Sunday the 15th of December, and carol services at 9:30 a.m. and 11:30 a.m., that's two of them, 9:30 and 11:30, on Sunday the 22nd of December. And that's at Cineworld Enfield, at the junction of Cambridge Road and Southbury Road. And also, the Millfield Theatre, North London's best family panto, it says here. They're all supposed to go, oh no it isn't, but they did that before we started recording. They forgot to do it then. Anyway, it's Dick Whittington this year, and it started on the 28th of November and runs through to the 4th of January, and some performances are already booked out and some are in short supply. So if you would like to go to the Millfield Theatre, you can call the box office on 020 8807 6680. That's 020 8807 6680, and they'll be able to tell you about all the performances in December and January at the Millfield Theatre and also the Dugdale Theatre, which is in the centre of Enfield. Okay, and just a reminder that if you're experiencing any problems receiving your Enfield Talking newspaper, please phone Diane de Jersey, and she's on 020 8805 6578. And she's your listener's representative, and she'll be pleased to help you. And now Elizabeth will read the first item of local news.
Thank you. Patients needing life-saving emergency treatment will no longer be seen at Chase Farm Hospital. The Accident and Emergency Department at the hospital in the Ridgeway, Enfield, treated its last patient at 3 a.m. on Monday. Excuse me. And the inpatient paediatrics unit was shut the same afternoon, 19 days after the closure of the hospital's inpatient maternity unit. Campaigners have expressed their deep regret over the closure of A&E services in the second phase of the controversial Barnet, Enfield and Haringey clinical strategy. Patients will now be taken by paramedics to specialist centres in central London, or to North Middlesex University Hospital in Stirling Way, Edmonton, or Barnet Hospital in Wellhouse Lane, High Barnet. Kieran McGregor of Save Chase Farm campaign, who has spent more than 7 years opposing the plans, including becoming elected as a councillor on the ticket in 2006, said that he feared for the long-term viability of the hospital in light of the planned merger of the Barnet and Chase Farm Hospitals NHS Trust with Hampstead's Royal Free. I'm hoping that Chase Farm will continue providing the health services Enfield needs, he said, but my fear is that in the long term, more services will be removed and land will be sold off to balance the books. On the other hand, they may find that services at Barnet and North Mid can't cope, and that decision makers reverse the decision and reopen emergency service at Chase Farm, but we just can't tell. Doug Taylor, leader of Enfield Council, which in October unsuccessfully launched a High Court legal challenge in an attempt to keep the A&E unit open, added, "We are bitterly disappointed with the decision that was taken. And what's very important now is that we monitor closely what happens with emergency services in the borough. In terms of the hospital, we need to ensure that it remains a viable hospital in the long term. But Kathy Geddes, the Hospital Trust Director of Clinical Strategy, said care would improve as a result. She said these changes aim to provide more specialist health care at the hospitals with an increased number of doctors and other healthcare professionals available more of the time and more services provided outside of the traditional hospital setting. She said services will be better coordinated so that people are only admitted to hospital when it's absolutely necessary, and if admitted, only stay for as long as they need to.
A man who admits stabbing his wife to death outside their home a year ago claims he was not in control of himself at the time. The Old Bailey heard last week that Minter Adido, 38, of Morris Court, Rigby Place, Enfield Island Village, who has pleaded guilty to the manslaughter of Akua Aguman, 23, in November last year, had told his aunt in the hours following the attack that he could not control himself after learning his wife brings men home when he was not there. Giving evidence via video link from Toronto, Ainwa Victoria Anning told the court through an interpreter that she had received a phone call from the defendant between 7 p.m. and 7:15 p.m. Canadian time. She told the court, "He seemed to be crying, and when I asked why, he said, 'The woman I brought from Ghana brings men home.' He said he couldn't control himself, so he stabbed her." The court also heard from Kwame Asamoah Apau, a friend of the defendant, who had visited Adido in prison, and revealed that he had said that on the night in question he had lost control of himself after returning home to discover a neighbour, Oladapo Eti Williams, and his wife together in the living room of their flat. The court heard that the defendant had told Mr. Apau that Mr. Williams had held a gun to his head and pushed him into the second bedroom of the property before leaving the scene. When he came back, he ran straight to Williams, said Mr. Apau. He told me he wanted to attack Williams, and that's when Williams held a gun to his head. However, Mr. Williams denied setting foot in the house on the night in question. He told the court that his relationship with Ms. Aguman had been platonic, and after exchanging numbers when she was once locked out of her house, they had sent flirtatious but not explicit text messages to each other, maybe 3 or 4 times a day. Defence counsel Jonathan Higgs QC produced phone records that showed Mr. Williams and Miss Aguman had texted or called each other up to 80 times in one day, with a total of 650 messages between their mobiles over a 4-month period. Some of those text messages were extremely explicit, with your telling her that you enjoyed having sex with her, said Mr. Higgs. Mr. Williams denied that he even knew Miss Aguman's name and maintained they had exchanged only innocent messages. When asked where the SIM card for the phone, which would have recorded the content of the messages, was now, he was unable to answer. Adido, who claims that he drove over his wife after the attack by accident, pleads not guilty to murder. The trial continues.
The council has come under fire for rehousing vulnerable residents who cannot pay their rent, miles away as cuts to benefit take effect. In a letter addressed to Enfield Council, leader Doug Taylor, Peter Halliday, the leader of Tendring District Council, accuses Enfield of driving a single mother to the brink of suicide after rehousing her in Essex, away from her support network. According to the letter, once the housing benefit cap came into place in April, it became clear that the woman could no longer afford to rent her family home. When she arrived and sought help to pay her council bills, she was told that Tendring has strict residency rules for people seeking assistance. Speaking to the Advertiser, Mr. Halliday said he was furious that London boroughs were pushing tenants who can no longer afford to pay their rent into cheaper districts, and they are not prepared for the sudden influx. He said, "You can't just pass on the financial burden by sending off one of your residents," he said. "I would like Enfield to stop sending their vulnerable residents to neighbouring districts. If there is a need to take this course of action, surely the right thing to do is to do it in a coordinated fashion. We need to at least be aware of who we will need to be providing for." Mr. Taylor said that the benefit cuts, which mean that families' incomes were capped at £500 no matter how many children they have, were starting to be felt, but that more than 1,000 families in Enfield had been helped to deal with the cuts, with 270 moving into employment and 105 claiming a disability benefit. Only 80 families had chosen so far to move out of the borough. Mr. Taylor added, as a result of our support, the numbers of capped households in Enfield has reduced from 1,250 in April to 975. However, due to the drastic cut in their benefits, some people find themselves unable to live in Enfield because of the increasing cost of rent. The council provides information to these people about their options, which are predominantly finding cheaper accommodation, finding work, qualifying for disability benefit, or finding the additional money to pay rent from other benefits.
Laura Enfield of the Enfield Independent has been interviewing Joe Collins about the all-inclusive drama group Chicken Shed. We were determined to go on and change the world, which I think we are doing bit by bit, says Joe Collins, reminiscing about the early days of Chicken Shed. The musician and composer teamed up with teacher and director Mary Ward in 1974 to foster a shared belief in harnessing the creativity in everyone and anyone. They decided to start an inclusive theatre company that would welcome all. But back in 1974, money was in short supply, so where could they get a building on the cheap? I had a friend, Lady Elizabeth Byng, reveals Joe, and asked her if she had a building. And she said, "Oh yes, I have a chicken shed." So we jumped in her BMW and went down a little bumpy country road, and there were these 3 chicken sheds, and I said, "It's perfect." Over the next 4 decades, Joe and Mary's dedication saw their initial idea grow into a fully fledged charity, and with the help of Lord and Lady Rain, they raised £1.3 million to build its current home in Chaseside, Southgate. It was only afterwards, when Jo happened to look at her birth certificate, that she realised she had been born in a nursing home just a few doors down the road. These days, the 62-year-old lives in Barnet, and recently she and Mary faced the mind-boggling challenge of going through 40 years of photographs for a 40th anniversary book. If I had known the mega task it was going to be to sort through them all, we've got thousands, and it took forever. We've had so many people teach here, be a member, be a parent here, and it was too hard to decide. For Jo, one of the highlights of the years was definitely getting Princess Diana on board as a patron. The first time she came to see a performance, she was genuinely moved by what she saw. She felt marginalised in the royal family, so she empathised with that and was always heavily involved here. Another mega highlight for me was when they did This Is Your Life here, based around Mary. That was magnificent. All these memories and more are in Chicken Shed, An Awfully Big Adventure, with a narrative by writer Elizabeth Thompson. It will have been launched on Sunday the 15th of December after the 5:30 performance of the night before Christmas, and Jo, Mary and Elizabeth will have been on hand to answer questions and sign copies. Jo, who takes part in the Christmas show every year, says, "Every time someone or even I say it's been 40 years, I just can't believe it. Because we're a charity and raised all our own funds, it's even more of a celebration that we're still going." She adds, "Hopefully we'll sell lots of copies of the book, as all the money will go back into our work."
Panto stars through their support behind independent traders when they helped to promote Small Business Saturday. Members of the cast of Dick Whittington, which is currently running at the Millfield Theatre, were out and about with Councillor Del Goddard, Enfield Borough Council's Cabinet Member for Business and Regeneration, on Saturday to encourage shoppers to visit the borough's smaller shops and businesses in the run-up to Christmas. Community group Love Your Doorsteps, LYDS, has also started a Shop Local campaign to keep locals on the high streets this Christmas. The council has been working with Enfield Business Retailers Association to produce a special guide to Enfield town shopping, restaurants and small businesses to help boost trade.
Protesters marched to Chase Farm Hospital on Saturday in a last-ditch attempt to stop the closure of its accident and emergency unit. A small group of demonstrators, mainly drawn from the North East London Council of Action, a coalition of trade unionists, young people and NHS staff, which was set up in 2007 to fight hospital cuts and closures, marched from the War Memorial in Chase Green, Enfield, to the hospital in the Ridgeway, Enfield. The group has been threatening to occupy the hospital in recent months in a bid to prevent the downgrade. A hospital spokeswoman said that there had been no trouble over the weekend. For campaigners, the closure of the hospital's A&E department on Monday marked the end of a 7-year struggle against the removal of emergency and maternity services at Chase Farm. Anna Athau, a former consultant surgeon in North Middlesex University Hospital in Edmonton and a member of NELCA, said the changes would put patients at risk. There is no corresponding increase in acute inpatient beds, theatre time, nurses or doctors at Barnet and North Mid hospitals, she said. To claim so is a lie. An urgent care centre is now operating at Chase Farm between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. each day. Monty Meth, life president of the Enfield Over 50s Forum, said, "The urgent care centre should be open 24/7, with several GPs and an adequate level of nurses. We also need to get an assurance from the Secretary of State that services will remain at Chase Farm following a takeover by the Royal Free Hospital." Enfield North MP Nick Dubois said, "This was the day so many of us fought to avoid, and I am very disappointed. But people should be proud of the campaign. What we have to do now is to ensure that we get the best possible healthcare across Enfield, particularly in primary care." And an attached article to that gives us a few more details about exactly what will happen with Chase Farm now. And it says, patients from Enfield can still be treated at Chase Farm Hospital for non-life-threatening conditions. The hospital will provide care for people needing to be seen urgently by a doctor for injuries including sprains and fractures. The hospital site will continue to have X-ray and diagnostic facilities at the Urgent Care Centre, open 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Only 55 patients were treated there on Monday. An out-of-hours GP service will also be available to patients referred by the 111 helpline service. Although the paediatric inpatient ward was removed on Monday, there will be a paediatric and older persons assessment unit on site, where GPs can refer patients for further investigations into health complaints and to coordinate care. Pregnant women will still be able to have scans at the hospital site, although the labour units have been transferred to North Middlesex University Hospital and Barnet Hospital. Outpatient and rehabilitation services will still take place at Chase Farm, and elective non-emergency surgery will also continue there.
And further to the benefit inquiries that are happening, families are bearing the brunt of the benefit cuts, and charities in the borough fear there is worse to come. Mark Bellas, who sits on the management committee of the Federation of Enfield Community Associations, has revealed that attendance at the charity's housing surgeries every Friday in Mottingham Road, Edmonton, has rocketed by 32% in the past year. "We see an average 12 people every week," he said, "and we are more than happy to sit and help them apply for the discretionary relief that is available to some families in need." He added that he has worked with 3 cases recently in which the families involved received a discretionary allowance which would allow them to stay in the borough. But the charity is now faced with having to help residents stave off hunger. "We are in the process of doing 50 food hampers to take to people around the borough who are in need," he added. "It is the bedroom tax, the increase in the cost of bills, everything really." He took a place at one of the housing surgeries. To book a place at one of the housing surgeries, you can call 020-8245-3593. That's 020-8245-3593.
A class of budding readers will be starring in a hit ITV children's show this week after their teacher won a competition to feature in the series. Des Haggerty, 39, and his class at Wilbury Primary School will appear in Bookaboo, a BAFTA-winning show featuring a rock and roll puppy who encourages kids to read every day. The episode, which has already been filmed at the school in Wilbury Way, Upper Edmonton, features Mr. Haggerty reading Pigeon Pooh by Elizabeth Beguli and Mark Chambers. I feel excited and proud that I'm able to represent Wilbury in such a positive way, and very proud for the children because I understand how important it is for them too, said Mr. Haggerty. The children were nothing but courteous and receptive the whole way through shooting. I was reading to them as I would on any other day, but I think the impact about them being on TV is just about starting to emerge. Storytelling is about the development of the imagination and the vocabulary, and it's a very important stage in their learning to be read to, he added. The competition, launched in May this year, asked teachers from across the UK to read aloud from their favourite book and submit a video of their performance. The show aims to bring each book to life through animations, comedy sketches and songs, and 1,000 books are donated to disadvantaged children in each episode. Previous celebrity readers have included singers Melanie C. and Meatloaf and comedian Al Murray. The Wilbury episode will have been shown on Saturday on ITV and CITV, but it will be repeated on Friday, December the 20th at 10:50 a.m. on CITV.
These are 10 tips to keep warm in winter. On bleak wintry days and with rising energy costs, homeowners should look now at some things they can do to protect their homes from the effects of falling temperatures. NHBC, the UK's leading warranty provider and standard-setting body for new build homes, offers the following advice to keep your home cosy and draft-free for the winter. Look after your boiler. Central heating boilers should be checked and serviced at least once a year by a gas-safe registered engineer to ensure they remain safe and efficient. Reduce drafts. Check the weather stripping on your windows and seal your doors to keep heat from escaping. At night, close your curtains to help insulate your windows against heat loss. Open your curtains in daylight to let the sun's natural warmth in. Bleed radiators. If a radiator is warm at the bottom but cool at the top, this could mean that there is air in the system and the radiator may require bleeding to ensure maximum efficiency of the flow of heat. Top up your loft insulation. Heat rises and in an uninsulated home, a quarter of the heat is lost through the roof. Loft insulation is a simple and effective way to reduce that waste and lower your heating bills. The latest government guidelines recommend 270 millimetres, which is 11 inches, which means if you live in a property more than 10 years old, it's probably ready for a top-up. Turn down the thermostat. According to the Energy Saving Trust, lowering the thermostat by 1 degree could save you around £65 a year. Floor insulation. Insulating under the floorboards on your ground floor could save you money. Although older properties are more likely to have suspended timber floors, these can be insulated by, ideally, a fibrous insulation such as mineral or sheep's wool. Newer homes will have a ground floor made of solid concrete, and this can be insulated if it needs to be replaced or can have rigid insulation laid on the top. Radiators are not washing lines. Hanging clothes on radiators means that you're stopping the heat getting to the rest of the room. Don't heat empty rooms. Only switch radiators on in the rooms that you use and shut the doors to keep the rest of the house warm. Compare suppliers. There are so many energy prices and offers available. Comparing the various offers from energy companies can often help you identify a cheaper tariff. More information on this subject can be found on www.nhbc.co.uk.
An armed robber who carried out a series of raids on businesses in North and East London has been jailed. Glendon Percival, 56, of no fixed abode, was sentenced to 8 years in prison when he appeared at Snaresbrook Crown Court on November the 28th after admitting a string of robberies between February and August this year. He was sentenced to 8 years behind bars for 5 robbery offences and 8 years for the possession of a firearm during each of them. The sentences will run concurrently. Percival went into Cheltenham and Gloucester Building Society in Church Street, Enfield Town, on February the 25th and handed over a handwritten note demanding cash to one of the cashiers. When she looked up, Percival was pointing a handgun at her. He made off with around £2,225 in cash. A few weeks later, on March the 20th, the 56-year-old targeted a nationwide bank branch in Alderman's Hill, Palmer's Green, again handing over a note to the cashier and threatening her with a gun before making off with £8,000. 2 unsuccessful robberies in April and July followed, one at a Barclays Bank branch in Chadwell Heath, East London, and another at Nationwide branch in High Road, Wood Green. Seeing Percival's gun, staff at the Barclays branch raised the alarm, while the cashier in the Wood Green Nationwide branch ran to an office at the back of the bank. On both occasions, the armed raider left without any money. Percival was arrested while committing another armed robbery at H&T Jewellery in Edmonton Green Shopping Centre on August the 16th after shoppers alerted police officers. 3 officers watched Percival brandishing a gun and placing jewellery and sale items into a laundry bag before running from the shop. They tackled and restrained him when he came out. Officers from the Met's North East Branch Flying Squad, who investigate commercial armed robberies, had linked Percival to them because of the distinctive description of him and the gun he used.
Children from 3 primary schools raised more than £1,000 for charity by helping supermarket customers pack their shopping bags. Pupils from DeBowen, Osage and West Grove primary schools helped visitors to Asda's Southgate bag their groceries as part of a day supporting the annual Children in Need appeal. Students from Performing Arts charity Jump the Rope also carried a bucket collection, and Junior MasterChef 2012 finalist TJ Dobson baked cakes to sell. The event raised £1,420. Organiser Percy Dedine Below said, "The parents of the young volunteers were good sports as they took part in the bucket collection, and the day would not have been complete without a visit from Pudsey Bear."
We've now reached the end of side 1 of this tape. Please stop your machine now, take out the cassette, turn it over and start side 2.